Somehow, this episode has my favorite scene so far this series, and it doesn't involve Rusty, court, or the murder. Huh, who'd have thunk it? Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Fifth episode of Presumed Innocent is here. It is called Pregame. Picks up right at the end of the last one after Rusty was punching the hell out of Ratchet outside his home. Picks it up, closes the door, and it's sort of the fallout of that. Barbara's kind of like, you can't be doing these type of things right now. You're in the middle of a huge murder trial. Anything that shows aggression or anger, it's going to be the problem. What if he goes to the police? And Rusty's pretty adamant he's not going to go to the police. He's not going to go to the police. He believes because of his infidelities and all the things that he has, the things that he's sort of hiding, he's not going to want to go to the police. So at least on that front, he feels we're fine. But nobody else in the family quite believes that that is the case. And somehow, Rusty decides to make things worse as this episode goes along. What's interesting about this episode is that it does do the positing of a new red herring, somebody else that could possibly have done this. But it's not as in your face with it as some of the other previous episodes have been. But they're always trying to just put another person that, hey, maybe this person had a reason, this person has a reason. That comes up, and I'll mention it when it does. This episode does a pretty good job of showing us how the people outside of Rusty. There's a lot less of Jake in this episode than I think any of the episodes that have sort of happened before this. This is very much a Barbara-centric episode. A little bit about Raymond and a little bit about Tommy. Those sort of are the main people of this episode, where Rusty takes sort of a back seat to let their stories evolve. So we start off with Tommy, and Tommy's going through footage. He's going through footage, looking at stuff, kind of reevaluating everything. He's got things going on through his head. Everybody's going sort of this pregame stuff to get ready for this court case, and they're having those last-second butterflies and things. And some of the stuff that they are thinking in their head sort of comes out in this episode. And while he's going through the footage, he clocks that Kyle was on his bike there. He writes it down, but obviously, like I said in previous episodes, he's not going to bring that up because that gives the jury another option. And that's sort of what Rusty and them have been going for. Is like, hey, we're going to present another person that you can't say Rusty was the person that did it beyond a reasonable doubt. When he comes in, I can't remember her name to save my life right now, but the other attorney that works at the firm with them, who's good friends with Rusty, but is on the defense, is on the prosecution's witness list. She's going to be called first. And in that, she's like, why are you calling me first? She has a good relationship with Rusty. And it's like, he starts questioning, like, well, did you have an affair with, like, were you guys, like, why is everybody so gung-ho with Rusty? You guys have an affair? It's crazy that that's the first thing he throws to is like, were you sleeping with him? It seems to him that he doesn't understand why everybody likes Rusty. And as we learn in this episode, why nobody really likes him. It seems like he has a lot of inner demons about why nobody really wants to be around him or work with him in any capacity, and how Rusty just is loved by all. And in Carolyn's case, having an affair with him. When she returns back with the statement of saying, go F yourself, that's inappropriate, and go F yourself, he then sort of uses the restructuring of the office and his goodwill with Nico to say, hey, we're restructuring the office, so you should be on our side, because if you're not, you may find yourself without a job. She just gets up and leaves. It's a bit of a quid pro. It's a dirty game that he's trying to play. And what's interesting is that he's playing the game as if he has the power, but he doesn't. He works for the man who has the power. Nico is the one who has all the power, and he's sort of acting as if he does. It's a very small man syndrome in this, and we learn more and more as this episode goes along that he has a very small man complex going on. He doesn't feel valued or seen, and he hates that other people who don't seem to be at a level above him or better than him are getting better options or better treatment, or are looked at in a higher value than what he is. It gets under his skin, and that's put on full display here. We then see the Raymond part of this, and Raymond is having a bit of a panic attack. We see through nightmares and whatnot. He's having stress, not getting sleep. One of his dreams, his head just explodes, a la The Boys. It's blood just splattering all over the place. It's like, am I watching the right show? But he has a conversation with his wife, Lorraine. And Lo is kind of just like, you've been having these dreams left and right. Why are you having these dreams? Like, the only reason you can be having them is if you believe that he's guilty. And Raymond's like, I don't believe he's guilty at all. But Lorraine is adamant that she thinks he's guilty. She doesn't really come out and say it, but she's kind of just like, or gives non-answers or verbal cues that she's not really believing that Rusty's on the up and up. And she's like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think. All signs point to Rusty. And he's like, no, that's not what's happening. He's like, none of the evidence actually points to him, but also none of the evidence takes him out of the crosshairs. Like, he is the only person that was there that night, so he's the only person that sort of fits the criteria of who it was that can be there. And until that's somebody else presented, or we can find some other hint of evidence, he's the person that this all sort of lands on. And then Rusty goes to go be an idiot. Rusty goes to trespass at Ratzen's place. He's watching it, and then he starts breaking in, which nothing he's doing, it seems like he's spiraling out of control. But he, in his roundabout way, has a game plan. But Ratchner catches him and sees him. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to call the police. And Rusty's like, nah, are you though? I don't think you are. He's like, I just want to talk. It's a weird way to get somebody's attention and say, I want to talk, by trying to crack into their door and break it open. But sure, that's what he's doing. So then we see Rusty go back, take what his information back to Raymond and Maya, and sort of say, hey, how about we posit the idea that Raymond, who's in prison and was the person that was on Carolyn's last case that she buried some evidence on, what if Raymond and Ratchner worked together somehow, and they worked together to kill Carolyn? And Raymond's like, this sounds ludicrous. And not only that, you assaulted and trespassed on this man's property. He can go to the police at any point in time, and this is just going to make my case a lot harder. What are you doing? You are spiraling out of control. You need to calm down. And starts probably in his head, he doesn't say this, but he's probably in his head like, Lorraine might be right. Like, you were doing a lot of things that just don't go the way a person who is innocent would operate. But he's like, no, I think this is the way we go. I think this is the way we plan it. Maya kind of interjects like, well, it's not a one-to-one how the Raymond killings were and how Carolyn was killed. Like, it's not tied up the same way. Rusty doesn't want to hear that. He's like, it's close enough. it's in the ballpark. We can present it as it is. And he's like, no, I don't think that's the way that we want to go. And Rusty leaves the room saying, well, cool. I don't care. Ratchner's coming in tomorrow, and we can decide and talk to him then. So he's going gung-ho with this thing. It just shows you, again, Rusty doesn't really think or take into anybody else's considerations. He's just kind of like, this is what's going to be the best for me to get out of this. Be damned of how it affects anybody else. Jaden, the daughter to Rusty and Barbara, just straight up asked Mom, do you think he did it? And Barbara says no. Like, your dad has a lot of faults, a lot of things that he is a bad man at, but I don't think he is capable, nor do I think he did this. So then Jaden goes to talk to her dad, and she's laying in the bed. She just says that I'm scared for you. Like, she's concerned. Evidence pointing one way, and then you seem to be spiraling, like you're punching people in the face, Dad. You can't do that. Like, what are we doing right now? And they hug and sort of have a moment that he tries to reassure her the best that he can in this situation. So where the episode gets interesting. And a few episodes ago, Michael, Carolyn's son, came in to have a conversation and said that, like, my mom had mentioned that she didn't want to work with somebody because she said she was a bad guy, felt like this person was stalking, but didn't mention the person by name. We as an audience automatically thought probably maybe talking about Rusty, but we didn't have the facts. And I kind of was like, no, that's somebody else. Tommy sort of just poo-poos that, ignores it, chalks it, but doesn't really mention it. Turns out it probably was Tommy. And that's the way this is sort of leading. So in this scene, Tommy starts remembering a conversation he had with Carolyn. It's like, hey, why don't you want to work with me? There's rumors going around that you don't want to work with me. Carolyn has to, as comfortably and calmly as she can, sort of sidestep that question and say, hey, not so much that I don't want to work with you, but I just you gave me the option. I was given the option. I'd rather work with Rusty. He's better at this, blah, blah, blah. Not something that Tommy wants to hear. You're kind of like, well, I don't know why everybody doesn't, I don't know why you don't work with me. Like, I'm just hearing from everybody else. And you can tell that it is bothering him. And it's not clear if it's bothering him only because it's professional level. It'd be strictly like, hey, I'd like to work with you. Why are nobody giving me this opportunity? Or was he already aware of the affair? Or I don't know. It seemed like there was more to it than just, hey, that bothers me that you don't want to work with me. It seemed like, hey, why are you giving that man attention and not giving it to me? And the way that he interacts with anybody else in regards to Rusty seems that that's how he sort of approached that all the time. Like, I'm just as good as Rusty. Why are you not giving me that same attention? And then Nico then comes to Tommy and say, hey, I'm hearing scuttlebutt about Liam Reynolds. I just want to make sure that we did our due diligence to wipe him off the board and say that he's not in it. Tommy's like, let me do the case. He's not a part of it at all. We've done what we can. We looked into him. He's not a part of it at all. Truth is, Tommy has not really looked into it. He's sort of just been all gung-ho on Rusty. So if at any point in time something comes up in the case where they point to Liam, he's not going to have enough facts or anything to prove one way or the other because he didn't look down this rabbit hole well enough. He's been so focused on just Rusty. That could come back to bite him. Barbara calls Clifton after taking a nice drink to the head and instantly regrets it while she's on the phone with him. She starts having like memories of her and Rusty and says, hey, I've made a terrible mistake. I'm sorry. I called him. And Clifton starts whispering poetic to her and it's like saying something with what's that one saying that we say? We regret the ones we don't take. We regret the things that we don't take, or the ones that we don't take. And she acquiesces. She goes to Clifton's place. She gets dialed up a little bit and goes to see his place and get some art. Look at some art that he's designing. And she gets some art that he's designing. No, she winds up kissing him. That's it. That's all that takes place there. As we learn in a later scene with her therapist. The next day, Ratchner comes in and meets with Maya, Rusty, and Raymond. He does not deny that he enjoys the lovings of prostitutes. He said he has had many of them. And he still loves his wife, but he has had them because after 4 kids, she just doesn't fulfill the sexual needs that he has in the way that she used to. And so that's just what she does. And then Maya asks, like, well, do you know this man? She shows him a photo of Liam Reynolds. He's like, I don't know who that is. Without question, doesn't hesitate. I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. And he repeats it. She shows him some scenes of the murder sequence and murder scene. Like, I'm sorry, you're showing me all this. I don't know what this is, but I don't know this person. To the point where it's believed. Raymond kind of like looks at Rusty like this isn't the avenue to go down. Like, this guy clearly, he's not the person, and this isn't the way to sort of do this case. We see Tommy come out the courthouse, and at first it seems he's just going to pass by the newscaster. Doesn't seem like he's going to really pontificate and get on his soapbox and do anything. And then they ask him a question about, what do you feel? Because he mentions justice. And she's like, well, what do you feel like justice is in this case? Or whatever. What do you feel like the right thing for this case would be? It's like the appropriate amount of justice. And then he gets on his soapbox, basically saying that, hey, so many times in the history, especially these last few years, people who are in power, people who have a high regard, people who are looked at as the stock people who are in high favor from the public, they aren't treated the same way that people who are not in that realm are by the judicial system, and that they get away with things that most folks don't get away with. I'm here to stop that. I'm here to put an end to that. And it's very much a way of him pontificating and sort of grandiose gesture of trying to say that he is the man with the good guy, and I'm trying to put on a good face for everybody and do the thing that's right for the small man. But it can come off pretty preachy. Nico comes in and sort of checks him about it, and he goes, like, what the hell is that? Like, how do you think that helps us? And he goes on to say that this is a little bit more into the window of him being that small man. Because he goes on to say that, like, nobody in this office likes me. And no one brought this up. He just sort of volunteers this because Nico specifically asked him, "What did you think that was?" He's like, "Give me a second." And then he kind of blurts out with, "Nobody in this office likes me." And it's like he's like, "It's not just Rusty and Raymond and the acolytes of them. I also don't feel like you are doing the best to show that you people should believe in me because you don't always have my back. And this distrust that you have is bleeding into the other people here, and it's allowing them also not to like me." What the hell are you talking about? I wouldn't have given you this position if I didn't think you were the person for it. And he says, "I need the jury to believe I'm the good guy. So I need them basically to feel like from the moment this case starts to feel like if I say something is, then that's just the way it is because Tommy says it is. And he's the good guy." Okay. Yeah. It seems like not only is he trying to win the favor of the jury, which makes sense, he's also trying to win the favor of Nico, the judge, court of public opinion, and just when he needs to be liked. And I think that is going to be the downfall of how he loses this case, and maybe more as we go along. The next day, Barbara also is getting dressed and getting breakfast away. She's got her groove back. She's looking a little dialed up. Going to therapy is where she's heading to. She's making breakfast. Everything's sort of happy, the calm before the storm, if you will. Rusty comments on how good she looks and says, like, "Tell your mom she's beautiful," in this little phone call. Anyway, he steps out of the house, and as he steps out, he sees that Kyle's bike is in the trash, which is interesting. Because technically that's evidence and it's just them disposing of evidence. So he runs back into the house like, "Hey, why is your bike in the trash? Like, is it trash?" And Kyle's like, "Well, the chain keeps coming loose." And Russ is like, "Oh, okay, uh, got it." And then he just leaves. He goes to grab the bike out the trash, and then puts it in the trunk of his car. Essentially to just keep evidence. Like, we don't want to get rid of evidence, but we also don't want it out there. But I'm going to hold on to this until somebody else says something about it. How did it end up in the trash? Was it Kyle or was it somebody else? Like, I don't feel like Kyle would be put that in the trash. Somebody or maybe someone told him to put that in the trash. It's going to be interesting to sort of see what gave him the inclination like to put that there. And then this is my favorite sequence in this show so far, because we get a little bit of insight into Barbara. Barbara goes into therapy and has a fantastic session with her. Ruth Negga kills this scene. And this is when we find out that she didn't have sex with Clifton. She just had a kiss. But appreciated knowing the fact that she could have had sex with him if she wanted to. She says that it was romantic, and she hasn't had romance like that feeling in such a very long time. There has been one session in between when the Clifton scenario happened and this therapy session, but she did not choose to divulge what happened with Clifton, but now she is. So it was a bit of a secret for her, but also she wasn't really willing to share that yet. But she basically goes on to say that for the first time in a very long time, she felt that somebody desired her, wanted her, and believed in her, and saw her, and something that terms that she had not felt from Rusty, and God knows how long, but because Rusty had been giving that to Carolyn all this time. Barbara then says that she felt that when she was going up the steps to Clifton's place, she felt like Jaden, her daughter, would have been proud of her, because she sort of she projects a bit here and says that I think Jaden's ashamed of me and saddened by me and saddened by the person that I am, saddened by the person who decided to forgive and stay and still loving her father, still loving Rusty. But that's her saying these things. She's put that on Jaden to sort of soften the blow of how she feels. But it's her feeling this way. Like, how could I be the person that is so weak to stay and love and who doesn't want me? He's desiring this other woman. In this case, this white woman. But he's desiring this woman that he's working with, and she just feels less than a person. And for the first time in a while, she got some of that power, some of that onus back. And she's like, "I didn't kiss him. I could have." And just knowing that I could have done it has put her back into sort of a stance that I feel seen. I feel wanted. And her just saying, I didn't F him. She uses the term. Like, I didn't F him, but I could have. I don't know if is that something that I should be proud of. She is though, because now she's sort of gotten sort of her. She's gotten the energy back to say that, hey, I am more than just the person that's underneath the wallflower that's underneath whatever Rusty decides to do. I also think this helps Rusty long term in that it provides a more stable provides a more stable and behind your corner Barbara as the court case goes along, which is something that comes into play in the next scene when Raymond basically tells him, like, hey, look, the defense that you want me to lead, where you're saying, hey, let's find somebody else and say, let's create reasonable doubt. Say that I don't think that's going to work. There's nobody else that was at the scene. There's nobody else that we can put there. I think the best defense is going to be the evidence doesn't point to you. There's not enough evidence here to say that it is you. And that is the way that we're going to go. And Rusty's adamant, like, no, that's not the case. I don't think that's the way to go. Raymond's like, I think you believed in me. You chose me to be your defense. But let me do my thing. Let me do what it is that I do. And Rusty's like, okay. And it's at that point that Raymond says, well, hold on real quick, too. Does Barbara believe that you are innocent? And Russ is like, yeah, of course. She doesn't think I did this. She's like, are you 100% sure? Because Lorraine, his wife, is like, well, Lorraine thinks you did this. Lorraine didn't get that from me. Like, I didn't. She's not getting that from me at all. And she's not the type of person that believes whatever the TV is giving her. So the only way that she can really get to that conclusion is if she just feels that way, or if she's getting that off of Barbara. And they are best friends, so they may be feeding back and forth into each other. You need to make sure 100% that Barbara's in your corner, because if we go the avenue that I'm saying that we're going to go down, we're going to eventually need to get back to a point where she might be a person that we call on. And Rush is like, she can't give me an alibi. There's no reason to call her to the witness. Like, no, it's a character study. Like, she's a character witness for you to decide who you are as a man. And there's nobody else after all of this affair, this murder allegation. There's nobody else better to put on the stand than your wife. And we need to make sure that she's 100% behind you to do this. And we shall see if she is. I think her getting sort of the dust, if you will, out of her and sort of reclaiming who she is as a woman with Clifton may help in this situation, but it also just shows you overall that there was more hurt and pain to Barbara than she was willing to let on. And I would just say, bookmark that scenario. Raymond also leaves the scene saying, hey, look, don't punch anybody else. Like, stop. We then get a montage, a sequence of them going to the courthouse, and it's them going on their way, processional. We get to see them coming out of the house with cameras. Their life has been changed. You see cameras all over. It's a beautiful shot. It's rain. They're coming out with the umbrellas. They have a moment where they all sort of hold hands in the car before they go out to the courthouse. You see the courthouse fill in with juror. The defense is already there. The judge comes in. The galley, the rest of the audience comes in. And then the family comes in behind. And then Tommy delivers his opening speech. He knocks it out of the park. And he goes into depth about how much he knew Carolyn. Everybody in that court knew her. The judge, she kind of infers that she was well loved. It's like, by the end of this, I want you to know her well too. And then he shows her photo of the murder scene. It's like, normally, I can see how you guys are repulsed by this scene. You would turn off the channel. You would turn the channel. But I want you to know Carolyn well enough to know that you can turn the channel from this. I need you to look at it. I need you to get all the facts, all the truth from this too. I need you to know that Michael is her son. He goes on to go forth just to humanize her as much and to say that she was a person, and I want you to feel her as a person. And I want you to use the facts to be your beacon of truth. Be faithful to the truth all the way through. It's like, I want you to know her, and I want you to use that as what guides you to seeing the truth here. And he kills it. I mean, everybody in there feels it. To the point where we get a camera shot, go back to Rusty, and he just says, fuck, because he knows that that was an amazing opening argument, especially considering that they are now no longer going, that there was another person there and they're just using the evidence. That was such a well done opening argument that you're going to need to get Barbara. You're going to have as many character witnesses as you possibly can to build Rusty up so that it doesn't seem like he's even possible to being the person here, but you're also going to have to eventually pull at the strings of Tommy, because it's clear that Tommy had more than perhaps professional, perhaps personal, but he wanted to have a more of a relationship with Carolyn that was not present, because everybody seems to love Rusty and he's not getting that same sort of love reciprocated. So you may have to sort of poke the bear a little bit. And I think he's going to be the weak link on that side of the thing. But all in all, really good episode. It's like I said, the Ruth Negga piece of it all is just chef's kiss. She's killing it. That was the best part. And I'm glad that we're now finally getting into the court side of this. I think there's so many times where you can add the red herring to say, hey, maybe this person did it. Maybe this person did it. There's not that many people that are in the circle of Carolyn and or Rusty. So it's now time to kind of shit or get off the pot with the court. So let's get in, play with it, and see where we lead to. I guess we're kind of at that sort of at the halfway mark, little past it, but now that we've got all sort of the players that we can before we get into the court, who do you guys think is responsible for the murder of Carolyn? We'll leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at hollywoodredid@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.